The world of movies can be convincing, and we all want to model ourselves after our favorite characters, but what can happen if you idolize parts of a film you were never intended to? I'm East Coast Vandal, your summer camp counselor, and this is Real Crimes, inspired by movies. Theory Sheridan, Scream. Theory was a 24-year-old lorry driver or truck driver from the town of Gurpines, Belgium, and an avid movie lover. It was this love of movies that helped him befriend 15-year-old Allison Camber, a young girl who lived just a few houses down from him. Theory was a lonely man and invited Allison over to chat for a bit as well as exchange a few movies. However, as they chatted, Theory would inappropriately suggest that the two should go to his bed and have intercourse, an invitation Allison would rightfully decline. Sometime later, Theory would excuse himself to another room where he had 2 large knives and a costume from the 1994 Wes Craven film, Scream. Scream is a currently ongoing horror franchise centered around a series of copycat killers all donning the iconic Ghostface costume. Re-entering the room, Theory would stab Allison a total of 30 times, also moving her body and placing a rose into her hands. Theory would immediately call his father and confess to the crime. The town mourned Allison's death, as well as fought allegations that the two were lovers, something Allison's father said was completely untrue. When questioned by police, Theory would tell them that he had in fact planned the murder beforehand, and that it was inspired by the film Scream. He would be sentenced to life in prison.
Hey, it's me. Real quick, if you liked the video so far, please consider liking it to help the algorithm and subscribing to see more content like this. Alright, back to it.
John Hinckley Jr., taxi driver. John Hinckley is most well known as being the would-be assassin of then newly elected President Ronald Reagan in 1981. Hinckley was an unsuccessful songwriter who grew an unhealthy obsession with actress Jodie Foster after seeing her in the film Taxi Driver. The Martin Scorsese film features Robert De Niro as a Vietnam veteran working as a taxi driver in New York City. He wants to one day rid the scum off the streets of New York, as well as assassinate a potential presidential candidate. Although his assassination attempt would fail, he would save young Jodie Foster and be declared a hero. When Hinckley became obsessed with Foster, he made multiple attempts to contact her, including writing letters, calling her, even moving to be closer to her while she attended college. He fantasized about the many different ways he could get her attention, including killing himself in front of her. He decided that to ensure his place in history, as well as become equals with Foster, he would assassinate then-President Jimmy Carter. He would follow Carter from state to state before being arrested on a gun charge, before he ever had the chance to attack. He would return home and seek help for his mental state, but when that failed, he would again begin plotting to kill sitting President Ronald Reagan. However, unlike Carter, he would actually initiate this plan and begin firing at Reagan as he left the Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. He would wound police officer Thomas Delante, as well as Secret Service member Timothy McCarthy. Another shot would strike Press Secretary James Brady in the head, severely wounding him, with one final bullet ricocheting and hitting Reagan in the chest. All would survive the attack that day, but Brady would be paralyzed in half his body for the rest of his life. Hinckley would be detained at the scene, as well as be charged with 33 crimes, although he was found not guilty by reason of insanity. 33 years later, while Hinckley remained at the hospital he was admitted to after the trial, James Brady would die. His death would ultimately be ruled a homicide, as it is believed to be the result of the injuries he sustained during the attack. However, Hinckley would not be charged. In 2016, a judge ruled that after many years of loosening restrictions, Hinckley would be allowed to leave the hospital. Today, he has completely left and runs a YouTube channel in which he uploads covers of songs as well as original music. He has around 25,000 subscribers and is looking to release an original album later this year. Daniel Sterling, Interview with a Vampire. In 1994, Daniel Sterling went to go see the film Interview with a Vampire, based off the novel by the same name by Anne Rice, starring Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. Lisa Stellwagen, his girlfriend of 8 years, said that they enjoyed the movie very much, but Sterling perhaps a bit more, as he would tell her the following evening point blank that he was going to kill her and drink her blood. This unfortunately would not be a lie, and he would stab Lisa 7 times that evening, as well as spend several minutes attempting to drink her blood. Eventually, he would call 911 and attempt to blame the attack on an African-American male. Luckily though, she would survive the attack, and Sterling would be placed under arrest. He would be found guilty of around 6 different charges, including attempted first-degree murder, after his lawyer failed to properly appeal due to his mental state. Sterling would be sentenced to life in prison. It was later believed to be a domestic dispute when Sterling became enraged after Lisa allegedly went out with another man. Although the movie may have inspired him to attempt to drink the blood, it's clear that his actions were his own. Daniel Gonzalez, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Daniel Gonzalez was born on June 21st in 1980 and had a relatively normal upbringing. By the time his parents divorced when he was 6 years old, he was known to be a decent actor, chess player, and overall a good student. However, Gonzalez had a dark side as well, gaining an unhealthy obsession with films like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street. By 17, he would be treated for psychological issues, but some years later live a life of unemployment and drug use. On September 15, 2004, Gonzalez would walk up to 61-year-old Peter King and his wife and tell him point blank that he was going to kill him. King, however, would manage to fight Gonzalez off. Soon after, Daniel would find 76-year-old Marie Harding and stab her to death, wearing a hockey mask like that of Jason from Friday the 13th. In the end, Gonzalez concluded that the reason he could not kill King was that his knife was just too small. 2 days later, over the course of about 4 or 5 hours, Daniel would attack 4 more people, killing 3 of them and being fought off by 1. The final 2 victims were an elderly couple that Daniel broke into the home of in the middle of the day. He would be spotted and arrested while leaving their home, bloody and naked. He would later describe the sensation of killing them as orgasmic. After his arrest, Gonzalez would attempt to commit suicide by biting through an artery in his arm, an act the doctor would call one of the most vicious things he had ever seen. However, he would survive this and be given 6 life sentences. Later, on August 9, 2007, he would take his own life with the edges of a CD case. Gonzalez would be dubbed the Freddy Krueger Killer, and his mother would write a letter to Parliament chastising the fact that her son had to commit a series of brutal murders before he could receive help. Kyle Shaw, Fight Club. On Memorial Day in 2009, around 3 in the morning, an explosion rocked the Upper East Side of New York City. However, it was soon discovered that the explosion was no accident, but the result of a homemade bomb made and placed outside of a Starbucks coffee shop. Since it was the early hours of the morning, nobody was hurt, but the explosion broke store windows as well as damaged nearby properties. Initially, the police had no leads in the bombing. That was until 17-year-old Kyle Shaw began bragging to his friends about the bombing, as well as telling them that they should watch the news from the previous day. Shaw was arrested and charged with attempted arson and attempted criminal possession of a weapon. When police searched his home, they found materials used to make explosives, a newspaper clipping of the event, and a copy of the 1999 film Fight Club. If you don't know Fight Club, then I'll have to break one of the biggest sins of the movie and tell you about it. In short, the main character in Tyler Durden, played by Edward Norton and Brad Pitt respectively, start a group in which men can fight each other in order to feel more manly, called Fight Club. And, avoiding all spoilers, turns into a full-blown terrorist organization called Project Mayhem. When word had gotten out that Shaw had attempted to create multiple fight clubs throughout New York City, it became clear that he may have attempted to recreate the world of Fight Club, and ultimately, Project Mayhem. Shaw was released from prison in 2017, and allegedly claims that he was innocent, and only took a plea deal in order to receive a lighter sentence. There was also another series of explosions around New York around that time, but no evidence to ever suggest Shaw had a hand in any of them. Well, that's it for now. Did you learn something new tonight? If so, please consider liking the video to help the algorithm, and subscribe to see more content like this. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at East Coast Vandal, and on Twitter at Vandal East. Stay safe, stay calm, just don't fall asleep. I'll see you next time.